We have all seen the propaganda posters, haven't we? Joseph Stalin with Mao Zedong, the leaders of two large countries governed by their own respective communist parties, with the same ideology in mind and end goal at heart. At least, that is what these posters portray. But how accurate is this depiction to the actual relations between the leaders of the Soviet Union and People's Republic of China? What did Stalin and his comrades think of Mao, and what did Mao think of Stalin? Artwork with flashy colours, after all, is no good source of information regarding such matters, and we all know about the Sino-Soviet split that came about during the era of Nikita Khrushchev after Stalin's death. But from what we can tell from the Soviet foreign minister under Stalin, Vyacheslav Molotov, and Stalin himself, their opinions of Mao were already fairly poor from day one. Regarding Mao, Molotov, who Stalin trusted and whose opinion Stalin valued, said, "He was a clever man, a peasant leader, a kind of Chinese Pugachev. He was far from a Marxist, of course. He confessed to me that he had never even read Marx's Das Kapital." Furthermore, it seems Stalin was rather distrustful of Mao, as the Soviet Security Service, the MVD, installed a special toilet during Mao's stay in Moscow to collect samples of his excrement so as to better understand his mentality. This level of caution and seeming distrust, along with the rather cold reception Mao received in Moscow upon his arrival, did not seem to be experiences shared with other leaders of fraternal communist parties or friendly nations. In his first ever visit to Moscow to meet with Stalin, Enver Hoxha, leader of the People's Republic of Albania, recalled, "During the 12 days of our stay in Moscow, we met Comrade Stalin several times. In the talks which we held with him, his sincere comradely advice, instructions, have remained and will remain dear to us forever." The day of my first meeting with Joseph Vissarionovich Stalin will remain unforgettable. It was the 6th of July, 1947, the third day of our stay in Moscow. And he continues, "That day, full of indelible impressions and emotions, we were received by the disciple and loyal continuer of the work of Lenin, Joseph Vissarionovich Stalin, who talked with us at length. From the beginning, he created such a comradely atmosphere that we were quickly relieved of that natural emotion which we felt when we entered his office, a large room with a long table for meetings close to his writing desk. Only a few minutes after exchanging initial courtesies, we felt as though we were not talking with the great Stalin, but sitting with a comrade whom we had met before and with whom we had talked many times. And no other socialist leader, such as Dimitrov, Beirut, or Rákosi, seemed to recall such a cold reception either, not to my knowledge at least. But Mao waited a long time, it seems, after arrival in Moscow to meet with Stalin, waiting so long that he became angry and started pounding on a table, and waiting a further 17 days between his first and second meetings with Stalin during his stay in Moscow. With this treatment in mind, and Stalin being hesitant to aid a Mao-led CCP against the Kuomintang, one can reach the conclusion that Stalin's opinion of Mao was rather poor and distrustful, Stalin, bearing in mind Mao's deeds, writings, and perhaps what Molotov had told him, reportedly used to call Mao a radish in private too, explaining he was red on the outside and white on the inside. Another thing of note was Stalin's, although never mentioning Mao by name, criticism of the concept of new democracy, stating that only people who have lost the last remnants of Leninism can think that on the subject of prolonged collaboration with the national bourgeoisie. Mao too had a low, perhaps far lower, opinion of Stalin. He seemed very hesitant to make such statements during Stalin's lifetime, probably fearing a loss of Soviet aid or recognition, but after Stalin's death in 1953, Mao was more than willing to spit on Stalin's grave, so to speak. In 1956, just 3 years after Stalin's death, Mao called Stalin in his work on the 10 major relationships a squeezer and exploiter of peasants, and blamed many of China's early revolutionary mistakes on Stalin and the Soviet Union. Later that year, he had told a delegation from Yugoslavia that he had disliked reading Stalin's works, accusing Stalin of wanting to stand above everyone else and command them. He accused Stalin of practicing metaphysics and admitted that he had never liked Stalin, and that he only wrote praise of him because he had to, not because he wanted to. It seems evident then that Mao, who admitted to the Yugoslavians to disliking Stalin before even meeting him, was not friendly towards Stalin out of the kindness of his heart, out of socialist fraternity, or any degree of sincerity, but out of a wish to get aid from the Soviet Union to further his own personal interests. And with the way relations after Stalin's death turned, it seemed China had gotten enough of that Soviet aid to stand on its own 2 feet and pull away from the USSR, condemning it outright in an attempt to organize the world communist movement around itself.